Weather is an important factor around the holidays, including Thanksgiving. And some of you might be curious, what was the weather like on the first Thanksgiving? Well, it was in Massachusetts and in late November, right? So must have been cold. But the reality is the original Thanksgiving in 1621 was likely in September or early October. You have to remember this time of year in New England, most of the crops have already been harvested. And as we've seen in upstate New York just this past week, snow could already be falling. So it wouldn't make sense for a pre-industrial society to have their Thanksgiving feast in late November. In fact, it wasn't until 1863 when President Lincoln said it should be the last Thursday of November. So what was the weather like in 1621 in Massachusetts in October? Well, there are some historical clues. According to the Old Farmer's Almanac, there was not a lot of information on the weather at the first Thanksgiving, which is actually a good thing because if any notable weather did take place, they would have wrote it down. So one can assume the weather was actually fair in mid-October in New England. Likely temperatures were into the 60s. Now, typically here in Florida, we see weather much warmer than that. But an interesting note, in 1970, we actually had a blast of cold air that dropped the temperatures down into the 20s. Now, the warmest Thanksgiving on record was 86 degrees, and that was back in 2014. For First Coast News, I'm meteorologist Robert Speta.